It's now 6 o'clock. I'd like to call the Hartsville-Charles County Board of Zoning Appeals to open it. First, we'll do roll call. Freddie Banks, Dwight Joel, Ron Moreland. So, y'all been sent the minutes from the March 14th meeting. I need any questions? If not, I need a motion to approve.
Make a motion to approve the minutes.
Ron Moreland and Freddie Banks seconded. On the any okay, I'm all in favor on approving the minutes. Aye. So you also have received your email of the agenda for tonight. If there's no objections, we need to approve it. Yes, sir. Yes. Any other changes to agenda for tonight? Got a motion to approve. Ron Moreland made a motion. Miss Freddie Banks second. Okay. If there's nothing else, we'll start with our new business. I got a resignation email from Mark Harper. He appreciated the support and being on the board, but his work will no longer let him be here regularly, so he sent his resignation. So we need to nominate and elect a new secretary. Mark was our secretary. We appointed him secretary at our last meeting. He wasn't here, so we do we have a nomination? Mr. Joel said he would gladly serve as secretary. Ms. Freddie Banks nominated Dwight Joel as secretary. I got a second. Mr. Ron Moreland seconded. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, and Mr. Dwight, you are our new secretary. Also, we had added a new board member, and Ms. Corey Linville. She couldn't make it here tonight, but she will be at the next one. She had her sister had passed away, so she just really wasn't mentally ready tonight, but she will. Okay, on other new business, there's a request by Dollar General for a sign variance located on map 029 parcel 26.12, which is 1.44 acres in the 6th district of Charleston County. So
yeah, I can give my staff report. Do you want to see if the applicant wants to speak to the project first before or after my staff report?
do what, ma'am?
Do you want to see if anyone wants to speak to the project before or after I give my staff report?
Anybody would like to speak on behalf of the Dollar General's sign variance request.
Good evening. Whoa, that's pretty loud. Sorry. Monty Turner, developer for the proposed project, and Monty Turner, Turner and Associates Realty. And yes, sir, we're requesting a sign variance. I can't recall the square footage of the current ordinance.
Sure,
But
I can step in on that one. The ordinance permits 1 square foot of surface area for each 2 lineal feet of lot fronting on a public street. The site has around 231 feet of road frontage on Highway 231. I'm realizing now that that's 231 feet for. Yes. And the proposed sign, so there's a freestanding sign proposed on the site that's 57 and 3/4 of a square foot. And there's a wall sign that's around 148 square foot in size that are proposed. So total, that's about 205 square feet of signage, which would be a variance of about 90 square feet of variance from
Right.
the permitted
right.
signage. 90 foot of variance. The amount permitted total is gonna be 115 square foot, because it's 1 square foot per lineal area of road frontage. So that's 115 square foot total. They're proposing 1 sign that is 57.75 square feet, and a sign on their wall that's a mounted wall sign that's 148 square feet. So their total signage package is 205 square feet, which is 90 above permitted by ordinance.
We feel like the request it's still proportionate to the size of the building, and it's standard for pretty much all the Dollar Generals that are built. Happy to answer any questions you might have.
Anybody got any questions? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So the signs are a little bit bigger, like the ordinance is, but this is the standard for signs for Dollar General. This is just a Dollar General store, right? At this location. You got anything else you need to add?
Yeah, sure. Just in summary, I'll just note quickly, the rest of the information in your packet discusses the location of the signs and the height of the signs. All of those are compliant, so it's just the square footage variance that's being requested for the proposed sign package. In staff's running in this request, it appears that the applicant is requesting just a variance for size and number if the wall sign is interpreted as a business sign that counts towards the 1 sign permissible requirement. The total size of the proposed sign is around 90 square foot larger than the allowed size. The applicants should determine exhaustion of doable options as part of their burden of proof. The applicant should show that the physical surroundings, as distinguished from a mere inconvenience, are so exceptional as to result in a hardship upon the reasonable use of the property by the owner. Financial and self-created hardship should not be considered grounds for granting a variance. The applicant, as part of this application process, has not indicated any hardship. The applicant did state that this is a standard signage package for the Dollar General store. If the applicant can demonstrate that the size of the proposed signage is necessary for reasonable use of this property as a Dollar General, the board should consider issuing a requested size variance. The standards for reviewing and granting a variance are included in your packet on page 3, as well as pages 4 and 5. If you would like to look over those and make sure this request is consistent with those conditions in the resolution. If you have any questions for me, let me know.
Sam, you got any comments or concerns?
I think the signs that were proposed do match the building that they're requesting. I've laid down the images that they're requesting that show the proposed signs, and it shows you size references that you can look at. If Mr. Moreland and Ms. Banks, if y'all swap, it'll give you the other sign. If y'all can hand those back.
Got anything else, Sam?
This one is slightly different than the one that was proposed before. If y'all remember, last meeting, we had individual lettering on the one that was on the building. This one is in a casement for this one. But if you look at the door location and the size of that signage that is being proposed, if you're asking for my opinion, I think that it's not excessive compared to the size of the building. And the monopole sign, if you look at the individual that is below it, it's not an excessive size sign. And we proposed a monopole sign on the last meeting that we had for the one that's on Hickory Ridge. So.
I was just saying, is this the setback off the street, the proper location for the sign of that size?
It appears that way. It doesn't overhang anything on the property. The size that they're requesting, it appears to be that way. I would need to look further into the engineering on how these fall, but the way they assemble them and the concrete base that they put into to support the signs is usually sufficient enough to maintain it standing.
And the zoning ordinance requires that the sign be out of the public right of way. And this proposed sign is within the property lines and outside of the public right of way.
So anybody out in the audience or watching online, this is standard size Dollar General uses. It's just a little bit bigger than our ordinance, but it's a standard size, so it's a little proportional to the building and the sign that's out on the pole. Any other questions? Do we watch the wheel or the board? Or would you need a?
Make a motion that we.
Sorry, Mary, go ahead.
No, I just had a question.
No.
I think the motion's been made.
Okay. Okay, Mr. Ron Moreland made a motion to approve the sign variance. Do I have a second? Mr. Dwight Joel, second. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank y'all for coming. Then the second one, request on the new business is the request by Dollar General for a parking variance located at map 029 parcel 26.2, which is 1.44 acres in the 6th district of Trousdale County.
So this is the same property as the previous request. And this request just pertains to the parking requirement as opposed to the signage. The applicant is proposing a site plan that includes 36 parking spaces. 34 of those are standard parking spaces and 2 would be accessible spaces. The Trousdale County zoning ordinance requires not less than 1 parking space for each 200 square feet or fraction thereof of sales space in general commercial districts. The proposed building on the site is around 10,640 square foot and would require about 53 parking spaces per code. The applicant proposes 36 parking spaces, 34 standard spaces, and 2 accessible spaces for the site. This amounts to around 1 parking space per 295 square foot of building area. And this site plan, to clarify for you all to understand, is being reviewed at the Planning Commission after your meeting today. So they're requesting these variances that would then proceed with the site plan for the meeting at 7 p.m. this evening. In staff's rendering of this request, the applicant's requesting to reduce the parking by 17 spaces per what would be required by code, resulting in 36 spaces or a space per every 295 square feet of building area or so. Again, the applicant did not list any hardship as part of the application, but if the applicant can demonstrate that the proposed parking reduction is necessary for the reasonable use of the property as a Dollar General, the board should consider issuing the requested parking variances. If you have any questions for me, let me know.
Mr. Jewell,
Do we have a layout of the internal of the store? I think typically we have based the parking requirements on square feet of retail space, not storage. Is there a storage room in this? And we don't always, I'm sorry, what I had said was, do we have a layout of the store building itself that shows how much is actual retail space, how much is storeroom, stock room, break rooms, or anything like that? Because I believe this is to be based on the actual retail space, the sales floor space. And then if that's the case, then we wouldn't necessarily want to include those areas in this calculation for parking. And where this has come into play more in times past was really smaller stores where that you don't have a lot of space for this. So that's just my question, is the 10,000 odd feet the total box of the store, or is that retail space?
yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Allison Turner with Greenwood Design, representing, I'm the engineer for this project. I could answer that question. I don't have the number right in front of me, but there's about 8,000 square feet of retail space. The rest is storage, bathrooms, office type of space. So typically we look at more like a one space per 250 square feet per retail. Dollar General works a little differently than your average retail store. It's almost more like a convenience store. I mean, you don't go to Dollar General and hang out there for an hour or two like you do at the grocery store. So this one's more of an in and out situation. So typically they'll do 30 to 36 parking spaces for a store of this size. I think it works out to closer to 1 per 250 versus the 1 per 200 that the ordinance calls for. And Dollar General is, you know, very standard across the board. They do these all over the place, and that parking works well for them. So I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Anybody got any questions for Ms. Turner?
I do appreciate you answering that, and I think you following my reasoning on this, and that was what I wanted to point out was that it's not as extreme as it seems from what we asked for and what is normally done.
And as I read the ordinance, and I may have like a previous ordinance version, I'm not sure, but as I read your ordinance, it called for utilizing the retail space to calculate that parking density.
I'll note in my calculation of the parking density, I did not have a copy of the interior of the store, so I was basing it on the site plan that was submitted. So, you know, thank you for the correction and understanding that the retail space will be less than the building footprint.
Yes.
Sam, you got anything to add?
On this topic, no, I passed around the site plan for everybody to take a quick look at and a reminder of what they're proposing.
Okay, only comment I got, I don't see it ever happening, but if Dollar General ceases to not be there, whatever goes into building, would it need the additional parking spaces? That's my only concern.
That would, Sam can probably answer that better than me, but that would be dependent on the classification of what goes in. If it changed to an office classification other than mercantile, it would certainly affect it. Things like restaurants and things have different parking requirements than just a retail mercantile establishment. But we can't really judge on what could be. We have to judge on what's before us.
Like Mr. Jewell said, it would just be a guess. It really depends on what goes in there. But we couldn't cover all the outcomes. Even though we required, you know, X number of parking places, it could be something that goes in there that needs even more than what we recommend. So it's really, we got to look at this based on what they're requesting. Do we think it fits?
If I can also address that, Dollar General's drive aisles are significantly larger than most drive aisles. Usually you'll have a 24-foot drive aisle, and theirs are oftentimes 36 in part of this. So there is room to get additional parking if you reduce those drive aisles. Dollar General likes the wider aisle so their trucks can maneuver on site without having to back into the streets at all. So that's why there's extra width on the drive aisles. That would help in some ways. Part of the hardship also for this particular site to get that extra parking is getting the septic field in the back, along with, it's got a lot of drainage coming across the site that we're dealing with in a low spot as well. So it's just a challenging piece of property from that regard. So
I will back her up. The 231 intersection up there is a really hard area for septic fills, period. So the fact that they found one that is workable for the store is excellent. The new gas station that is going in on the corner, they struggled to get the septic that was required for it. But they were able to do that as well.
I would also just add to the note on concern about if the store were to be something else that would need additional parking. If there was a different use that was going to be there at a future point in time that required, you know, exterior changes, an addition or anything like that to the building, that parking could be looked at again as part of that site plan and that application. The only time you wouldn't really see that is if someone was not doing anything to the footprint of the building or the site and just pulling a new permit. But if there was any changes, if the store got bigger, that would be looked at again.
I'm sure it'll be very successful and we welcome them to Trussell County. Mr. Dwight,
I make a motion that we grant variance, feel like this is adequate parking for this store of this nature at this place.
Mr. Dwight Joel made a motion to accept the Dollar General parking variance. Do I have a second? Ms. Freddie Banks, second the motion. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carried. Is there, I don't have anything else. You got anything, Sam?
I just want to thank you all for showing up tonight. It's good to have a quorum every time. And we won't have to postpone things and have to come back next month or in a couple weeks. So I really appreciate y'all coming in and helping out this new business and looking at their proposal. Thank you.
We got anything else from the audience? Anybody need to say anything? Okay, sounds good. I got a motion. Ms. Freddie Banks made a motion to adjourn. Ron Moreland seconded, and we were adjourned at 6:26 p.m. Thanks everybody for coming.